Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Sorry I haven't uploaded in a while. A lot of chaos coming into the end of the school year, coming up into winter break, but we are on winter break, and so it's going to be non-stop reviews for first Winter's Heart, the ninth Wheel of Time book. Of course, have the big boy Wind and Truth will definitely be coming out with my review of that this week. In addition to that, I finished Empire of the Vampire, so I'll get that review out to you soon. And then finally, I have about 20 pages left in Lightbringer. So I will finish that up and get you a review of Lightbringer as well. So a lot of book reviews coming to you at the end of the week. And then I'll talk about my top books of 2024. So look out for those in the coming weeks. But to start with Winter's Heart, I really enjoyed this book. This is one of the last books in what's called the Slog for the Wheel of Time. And one thing that I've noticed while reading the Wheel of Time, is I really haven't felt like the Slog was that much of a slog in my perspective. I actually really enjoyed all the books that are traditionally called the Slog. And I think the reason it comes from what I enjoy about the books versus what I know a lot of other people enjoy about the books. One of my favorite, like, I love the characters in the world, in the magic and the world building of Wheel of Time, but some of my favorite parts of it is the ramifications that that misinformation and disinformation and communication has on how the Wheel of Time functions, because it's a book series with a very obvious bad guy. The Dark One is obviously the main threat that needs to be stopped. However, the fact there's so many conflicting sources and conflicting forces and sources and information flying around, and rumors play a big role into why everyone just doesn't team up together to take on the Dark One and his agents. And I love that about the book. And getting to slow down over the course of the last couple books and actually get down kind of closer into how the spreading out of facts has causes problems for our characters has been amazing. In addition to just kind of like the smaller, more intimate character moments that we've gotten over the past couple books, just getting to spend time with the characters that I enjoy, which has made the slog not feel as rough for me. That being said, very few of the slog books have been among my favorite of the Wheel of Time books, but they definitely have been enjoyable for me. And so coming back to Winter's Heart, the kind of slower aspects of this book did not grate on me as much as I know it does on a lot of people. That isn't saying that this is a perfect book. There are definitely a few flaws with Winter's Heart that definitely held the book back for me. But after taking a break from Wheel of Time to read Cosmere and Red Rising and a couple other series, this grabbed me and tugged me back in. I have book 10, Crossroads of Twilight, to read over break. But there was a lot that I did enjoy about this book. A lot of kind of like the methodical aspects of Mat's time in Ebun Dar in this book, and just kind of how they're trying to almost fumble their way through this escape plan. In addition to that, you have Rand's. There's a lot of things going on with Rand, and even though Rand has kind of moved back and forth of where he is in my favorite characters, depending on what's happening in the book, I definitely did enjoy his actions and what he's been doing throughout this book. Some of the moments with Elaine and Nynaeve in Camerlin were enjoyable to read. There was a lot of really positive aspects of the book, and I think the kind of what's, for me at least, has been the kind of the crescendo as we're getting to kind of these later books in Wheel of Time, where we're seeing plans that were put into place a while ago start to come to fruition, and these final plans that are taking place before what's obviously going to be a huge confrontation in these final couple books, them start to pay off, and they start to be laid so that everything can come to a head. And I really have been enjoying that throughout this book. There are just a few things that kind of grated on me in this book that I kind of that just kind of brought it down for me a little bit. I think particularly I did not like Perrin as much in this book, and I think part of that is I'll talk about that in my spoiler section. But all in all, Winter's Heart is amazing. To be fair, if you're at this point in the series, you don't need a recommendation to keep going. You're 9 books in, and you're almost to you're almost the end of the slog. So at this point, you're pretty much locked in it. But Winter's Heart was a great book. I highly recommend it. But I'll be back in a second for my spoiler section. All right, to start off with my spoiler section, I'll go to the Perrin parts that I kind of alluded to earlier. Perrin is my favorite Wheel of Time character. I love Perrin. He is my favorite of the big three, and like I said, hands down my favorite Wheel of Time character. And I feel like he has devolved a little bit over the past couple books from where we saw him in the Two Rivers. When he was holding back the Troll-like hordes, I feel like we've gone backwards a little bit in his character arcs, and I'm hoping that we stop doing that in the next book. But especially we don't get much of him. It's just Fail being kidnapped and him in just those couple chapters in the very beginning. But just even in the previous book, I wasn't the biggest fan of how Perrin's character came across. I feel like Robert Jordan didn't 100% know what to do with him through those books, and so he either feels stagnant or devolving, and just it really kind of grated on me, especially how much I love Perrin, how much he's grown over the past couple books. It just kind of irked me a little bit over the past couple books, and that was probably one of my biggest critiques of this book is Perrin a little bit. I guess moving on to Rand, because that was probably my second least favorite, especially in the beginning. Rand, as he kind of grew more insane, he grows more insane a little bit, and sometimes it kind of just infuriates me. What he's doing sometimes, how he's reacting and acting around things, how he interacts with other characters. Once again, kind of irks me. But Rand is definitely not the worst offender. I think, especially as we get to the latter half of this book, what's the city? It is Farmading. As we get to the end of the book in Farmading, his character starts to get better for me. There was a lot, we'll get to this thing in Camerlin, when I talk about Elaine's perspective, but Rand did not kind of grate on me as much as he did in previous books, and it made for some very tense fighting with the Ashiman and with Paladin Fane in Ebon Dar, which was enjoyable. And that, of course, leads to what a climax. Oh my god. I didn't think that he was going to do it. When we come to this end of the book, this kind of final chunk of the book, and Rand is trying to actually purify the male half of the source. I did not think he would do it. I thought he would fail and it would be a major setback. But he actually does manage to do, or at least as we see at the point in this book, we think that he has done it, and that was crazy. That the entire final confrontation with I'm completely blanking on what their title is. The Chosen. There we go. The Chosen having to come out of the woodwork to openly challenge Rand, getting to see almost a little bit of their perspectives in there, and seeing their thoughts, their feelings in that moment was really enjoyable. It made for a incredibly impactful end of this book. I mean, this was a phenomenal climax. I mean, even after coming from Wind and Truth, that was a Sanderson level climax with Rand purifying the male half of Saidar. It was Saladin. It was a phenomenal climax, and it kind of felt honestly. I haven't started the next book yet, but I think that that kind of, at least for me, signals almost a transition into this ending period of the Wheel of Time, kind of that middle portion where everyone's kind of gathering their forces and preparing for things. That almost felt like an end to that, and I don't know where he's going to go in the next book, but it feels like we're moving into the end times with that big moment. But yeah, Rand's perspective was a lot more enjoyable in this one, and part of that is I actually really fell in love with farmatting. It's such an interesting concept for a city. The one city in this magical world where magic doesn't work. The concept of having to keep your sword with the swords. It is just really an interesting location, and how it functions is actually really awesome. I enjoyed. It was a really fun piece of world building. That I haven't really seen in other places, and I actually think is a really cool concept that I wish authors would use more now that I've read it. Farm was definitely a highlight of this book. All of the things with Chrysanthemum and her group in there, as well as Rand and his group in there, all of it was a really awesome just chunk of the story. I guess over to Chrysanthemum. She kind of moves in with Rand's party a little bit there, but all of that was just a really enjoyable section of text. Moving into moving into Elaine's perspective and what's happening in Caramel. It was very interesting to see. When people talk about slowing down, I can see it there. Because Elaine is it's very much into the politicking and this is a city coming off of conflict and occupation, and how is that going to change, and treaties and peace deals and brokering with bankers and merchants, and all of that was just a really interesting look into how the kingdom is run, and how economics and countries work in the Wheel of Time. And I actually really once again, it's slower. It was more of a slog to get through I'm sure it was more of a slog to get through for some people, but I really enjoyed that section. I think that if you're someone who likes to see those intricate details, that if you like stopping like, hey, how does the merchants work? How does banking work? What kind of resources are rare and coveted in this world? I think that the slog is actually a highlight. In some respects, because you get to spend so much time just kind of nitpicking down and breaking down the little details. It almost feels like what Sanderson does in his Q&A sessions, where they're talking about almost the more minutia details of the story, but kind of almost in book form, which is a lot of fun. In addition, there is still, I'm seeing the kind of conflicts between the Aes Sedai and the Kin, and the captured site, Daime, in addition to the Windfires, and seeing all of those kind of grading tensions. They're all hoping to work for the same goal, which is the end of the Dark One, but it's the internal politicking and all of that, which once again makes this story so exciting. And we see that again when where Elaine goes to visit with the Borderlands diplomats, and just all of it is just a way to. It's just so much wonderful intricacies in looking at how the politics and countries of the world function, which I really enjoyed. Of course, the big plot developments there is definitely Rand being bonded. Well, first you have Elaine and Anavita becoming sisters through the ceremony with the Aiel, and amazing scene. I love they're two. I mean, Anavita and Elaine are two characters that I've really loved throughout the book, and seeing them grow closer together and seeing their friendship develop. And it was almost a moment of catharsis where they're finally sisters, and it was just a really well written scene. I really enjoyed how Robert Jordan wrote that. And then we follow that up with Min, Elaine, and Anavita bonding Rand as a warder, which, once again, a really awesome scene. I didn't like, obviously, it was a shorter scene, but also kind of that catharsis of something that we've been expecting to happen for a long time, finally happening. And then it was interesting to see, again, these kind of more public servants in the chief maid and whoever the guy who was like her economist or whatever, to see Bridget in more of a general's role was a lot of interest. I was interesting to see how they all functioned within those new positions. And that, I guess that kind of brings to the big plot point, the POV that kind of stretches throughout the majority of the book, which is Mat in Ebon Dar. Which Ebon Dar is an interesting city. I think we've seen Mat there across, I think, like 3-ish books. And, well, he was there for a book. He was not in the last book, and then he's back for another book. But seeing his escape and seeing him try and seeing him having to deal with the Seichan invasion, seeing the Seichan invasion from this is the first time we've seen them not from a military perspective, but from an occupational perspective. Well, the only times we've seen them before have been confrontational with Rand, and captive-wise with Egwene. We haven't seen them in an occupational perspective, how they integrate with the local population, how they run their empire far from home. And that was really, really interesting to see. Kind of, once again, this is another empire with a completely different style of governance, and we're getting to see the intricacies of that governance firsthand, which was just really, for me at least, was really interesting to see. And in addition to that, Matt's character is a lot of fun. His interactions with all of his interactions in the palace with and his plans to try to escape with the Aes Sedai. Just Matt is a lot of fun, and I just enjoy reading his chapters and just kind of the kind of the time crunch, the press of can we get this done in time, and I mean, and then finally the escape itself being really exciting, and then of course eventually the Daughter of the Nine Moons, something that was set up, which would be, I'm pretty sure it was The Shadow Rising, so like book 4. So we're 5 books later, and we finally get the payoff that was set up in The Shadow Rising, which really awesome to see. The only caveat, the one thing that, well, I have loved Matt's time in Ebon Dar, it has the one caveat of finally him leaving has kind of brought an end to one of the most problematic relationships. There are a lot of problematic relationships in the Wheel of Time, let's not pretend, but probably the most problematic relationship in the Wheel of Time, which is Tylan and Matt, a relationship that started with sexual harassment, continued with sexual assault, and eventually morphed into something more bordering on Stockholm Syndrome. And it made me uncomfortable pretty much the entire time I was reading those sections of the book. Like, I get that it was meant to be a more lighthearted comedic effort, and it was more lighthearted in the fact that Matt wasn't actively in danger of being killed, which it's preferable to him being in danger of being killed, but kind of weirded out by a lot of that. I know that there is a division. I don't know what the rest of the community thinks about that particular relationship, but it always kind of rubbed me the wrong way, especially how comedically it's taken. And while obviously Matt grows to have feelings with Tylan by the end of their relationship, I just kind of can't get over how it started. And that just kind of, having that gone I do like that a little bit more than when we had it around. But beyond that, highly recommend. Beyond those kind of downer aspects, some of how Rand is portrayed, Perrin, all of Perrin's chapters, unfortunately, and kind of some of the more problematic aspects in Ebon Dar, Winter's Heart is amazing. Every time I pick up a Robert Jordan book, I'm continually blown away with how well he writes. I mean, compared to, no offense to Sanderson, but compared to Sanderson or some other authors that I've read, Robert Jordan, his writing is just so pretty. I enjoy it so much, and just the intricacies that are layered on top of one another just constantly leaves me in awe. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. Like I said, I hope to get a bunch of reviews out to you in the coming days. But thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to see more book reviews from me. And I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.